If you've ever stepped into a crowded place and felt an immediate, almost visceral sense of compression inside your body, this experience deserves to be understood with depth, not dismissed with labels. It often begins subtly. A tightening in the chest. A shallow breath. A desire to retreat that appears before conscious thought. Around you, people seem engaged, stimulated, and comfortable, while your own system reacts as if it has entered an environment that is fundamentally incompatible with its internal organization. This is not weakness, social dysfunction, or fear masquerading as sensitivity. It is the result of a perceptual shift that occurs when awareness expands beyond habitual filtering. At a certain point in inner development, the mechanisms that once dulled reality to keep life manageable begin to loosen. Perception becomes more direct, less edited, and far more honest. In that state, crowded environments reveal their true nature: overlapping intentions, unresolved emotions, constant mental noise, and a collective rhythm that prioritizes speed over coherence. Your system responds not because it is fragile, but because it is no longer dissociating from what is present. Awakening does not always feel like light or peace. Often, it begins as the inability to tolerate what was once normalized. As this shift unfolds, sensitivity emerges as one of its most defining expressions. But this sensitivity is not emotional instability. It is perceptual range. You begin to notice nuances others move past without awareness. Facial microexpressions, subtle changes in tone, pauses in speech, emotional incongruence, and the unspoken atmosphere of a space all register with clarity. Where many people unconsciously filter out excess input, your awareness receives it in full. This does not happen because you lack boundaries, but because your perception is open and uncompressed. Historically, this kind of awareness served as a form of protection. It allowed early humans to sense danger, instability, or change before it became obvious. In modern environments, the threat is no longer physical, but the overload is constant. Crowds overwhelm you because your system is processing layers of information that were never designed to be metabolized simultaneously. After limited exposure, fatigue sets in. This exhaustion is often misunderstood, even by those experiencing it. It is not a lack of resilience. It is the natural consequence of deep perception without sufficient space for integration. Awareness that cannot integrate becomes saturated. Saturation leads to withdrawal, not as avoidance, but as self-regulation. Another profound transformation that accompanies this stage is the gradual erosion of tolerance for inauthenticity. In crowded settings, people often operate through performance. They present curated versions of themselves that feel acceptable, functional, or socially rewarded. Smiles conceal fatigue. Humor masks discomfort. Conversations remain safe rather than sincere. For someone whose awareness is recalibrating toward coherence, this creates friction. You sense the discrepancy between what is expressed and what is felt. You feel the emotional labor embedded in maintaining appearances. This dissonance drains you far more than the physical presence of others. Small talk feels heavy not because it is meaningless, but because it lacks presence. It requires participation without truth. As awakening deepens, the cost of pretending becomes too high. You may find yourself withdrawing not from people, but from environments that require you to fragment yourself in order to belong. This is often misinterpreted as social avoidance, when in reality it is a refusal to abandon internal alignment. Your system is no longer willing to trade authenticity for inclusion. Alongside this shift, your relationship with stimulation itself begins to change. Some individuals derive vitality from external input. Movement, noise, novelty, and social interaction increase their sense of aliveness. Others derive vitality from stillness, reflection, and internal exploration. As awareness matures, you may notice a clear reversal in what nourishes you. Environments that once felt exciting now feel draining. Silence, once uncomfortable, now feels restorative. This is not regression. It is refinement. Quiet spaces allow your internal processes to unfold without interference. Thoughts settle into clarity rather than looping compulsively. Emotions surface and resolve rather than remaining suppressed. Insight emerges organically rather than being forced through analysis. From the outside, this may appear as inactivity or withdrawal. Internally, it is a period of profound reorganization. This stage can feel confusing because it contradicts cultural narratives that equate busyness with value and stimulation with fulfillment. But awakening does not pull you away from life. It changes how life is processed. You are no longer dependent on constant input to feel real. Presence itself becomes sufficient. Emotional sensitivity also intensifies in ways that are difficult to articulate. You may find that you feel the emotional state of others before they speak. Tension becomes palpable. Unresolved conflict lingers in the air. Joy, anxiety, and restlessness move through you without invitation. In crowded environments, this can feel overwhelming because you are not only managing your own internal state, but unconsciously resonating with many others simultaneously. This is why solitude brings relief. Not because you dislike people, but because your system finally has the space to return to its own center. Emotional permeability is often labeled as being too sensitive, yet it is more accurately described as heightened attunement. You are not absorbing emotions randomly. You are perceiving the emotional field. This ability, when supported by boundaries, allows for deep empathy, intuitive understanding, and meaningful connection. When unsupported, it leads to exhaustion. Awakening requires learning how to regulate this sensitivity rather than suppress it. As this awareness stabilizes, a deeper realization begins to take shape. You are not avoiding life. You are choosing coherence over chaos. Modern culture rewards visibility, speed, and constant engagement. Silence is often misunderstood as emptiness, and solitude is mistaken for loneliness. But in this phase of consciousness, silence reveals itself as fullness. It is full of insight, self-regulation, creativity, and truth. It is where your inner compass recalibrates without external interference. It is where you reconnect with yourself beneath roles, expectations, and conditioned identities. Choosing fewer environments, fewer interactions, and deeper alignment is not withdrawal. It is wisdom. It is consciousness learning how to sustain itself without fragmentation. This choice may be misunderstood by others, but it does not require justification. Awareness does not seek validation. It seeks integrity. There is often a quiet grief that accompanies this phase. The realization that certain spaces, relationships, or lifestyles no longer resonate can feel disorienting. You may question whether you are becoming distant, disconnected, or overly selective. These doubts are not signs of regression. They are part of integration. You are learning the difference between proximity and resonance. Being surrounded by people no longer feels meaningful if there is no energetic alignment. This can initially feel like loss, but over time it reveals itself as precision. Depth naturally narrows the field. Awareness reduces noise. What remains is quieter, but more real. This is not isolation. It is discernment. It is consciousness choosing quality over volume. With time, trust replaces confusion. You begin to honor your sensitivity rather than resist it. You learn to choose environments that support regulation instead of overwhelm. You allow yourself space without guilt. You stop explaining yourself to those who measure worth through visibility and noise. Slowly, your system stabilizes. Crowds may still feel intense, but they no longer destabilize you. You recognize the signal for what it is, information. Your awareness is guiding you toward coherence. This guidance is not dramatic. It is subtle, persistent, and precise. It does not demand attention. It invites alignment. At this stage, silence becomes more than absence of sound. It becomes a living space. A place where intuition sharpens, perception deepens, and identity reorganizes around truth rather than habit. In silence, you begin to notice how much of life is driven by unconscious momentum. How many actions are performed out of expectation rather than intention. Stepping back from this momentum is not disengagement. It is conscious participation. You are learning how to move through the world without losing yourself to it. This requires courage, because it often means resisting the pull of conformity. But the reward is profound. You gain access to clarity that cannot be reached through noise. So if you find yourself stepping back from crowded spaces, preferring depth over stimulation, honoring stillness, and protecting your internal state, understand this clearly: nothing is wrong with you. Something is awakening. Your perception is refining itself. Your sensitivity is becoming discernment. Your need for silence is becoming self-respect. In a world that constantly demands attention, your quiet presence is not a flaw. It is medicine. You are not broken. You are not antisocial. You are not missing out. You are aligning with a deeper order. And this alignment is not the end of your journey. It is the foundation upon which everything meaningful will now be built. ChatGPT Rotorista. Before we end, I want you to do something simple, yet deeply meaningful: observe yourself with honesty. Think about the moments when silence calls you more than noise, about the times when you feel different in crowded places, not out of fear, but out of clarity. If something inside you quietly nodded while you listened to this, then this message didn't reach you by accident. It found a point of recognition, not persuasion. And if you know someone who avoids crowds, who prefers deep conversations, who seems to get tired where everyone else gets excited, share this video with them. Sometimes, all someone needs to feel whole again is to realize they're not alone, and that there's nothing wrong with how they experience the world. If you feel that this content expresses something you've been living, if it helped you give a name to what used to be just a feeling, consider subscribing to the channel. Here, we don't speak to change you, fix you, or make you fit in. We speak to deepen the understanding of consciousness, sensitivity, perception, and the different internal rhythms that exist within us. Each video is an invitation to go beyond the noise, beyond the shallow definitions, and move closer to who you truly are. And if you'd like, leave a comment sharing whether you saw yourself in this, or if you're choosing more and more peace instead of excess. Your experience might be exactly the mirror someone else needed to find.